When Santana arrived at Lynch's Ferry on April 20th, 1836, he received the shock of his life. The rebel army, the same rebel army he thought camped at Gross's plantation, barred his route of march. Notwithstanding the objections of many of his subordinates, Santana pitched camp on a boggy plain at the juncture of Buffalo Bayou and the San Jacinto River. His Excellency well knew the spot he was in. He dispatched a courier to General Martin de Casse at Fort Bend with orders to bring reinforcements with all possible speed. Dense woods bordered his position on one side, a marsh and a lake enclosed the other. Less than 500 yards separated the opposing forces. A grassy plain containing a deep basin lay between them. Moreover, Houston had about 900 men, Santana but 700. For the first time, Texians enjoyed numerical superiority. Most of the Texian soldiers wished to press their advantage and urged Houston to attack immediately. Yet the circumspect general only authorized a reconnaissance in force. Mounted Texian riflemen forced a small squadron of Mexican dragoons to withdraw. A larger force of Mexican cavalry returned the favor, forcing the Texian horse to retire. During the skirmish, the Mexicans almost captured Secretary of War Thomas J. Rusk, but Mirabeau B. Lamar boldly charged through to rescue him. Disobeying Houston's direct orders, several companies of rebel infantry rushed to support their beleaguered horsemen, who fell back under the fire of the Texian foot. The skirmish of April 20th accomplished little. Many of the Texians believed that Houston had been perfectly willing to leave his horsemen to their fate. As night fell, they wondered what the morrow would bring. Houston's inactivity appalled them. What would it require to force this weakling to fight? On April 21st, most Texians expected to attack at first light, but General Houston ordered that no one should disturb him and slept late that morning. About 9 a.m., Casse arrived with 540 reinforcements, swelling the Mexican ranks to 1,200 men. Houston's lethargy had squandered the numerical advantage. Watching the enemy reinforcements arrive on the field, the rebels were practically apoplectic. How many more Mexicans would Houston allow to arrive before he unleashed them? Later that morning, Houston met with his scouts, who advised the destruction of Fence's Bridge over Semmes Bayou. Casse's reinforcements had earlier employed it to reach Santana's camp. The Mexicans already outnumbered the rebels, but it was a safe bet that more were on the way. The demolition of the bridge would, the scouts hoped, hamper the arrival of those enemy units. Houston duly issued orders for the dismantling of the bridge, and D. Smith and a squad of volunteers carried them out with alacrity. Bridges were much on Houston's mind that day. Around noon, he called the Council of War. During that meeting, the general urged the construction of a floating bridge across Buffalo Bayou to enable the Army's retreat. The proposition utterly flabbergasted his lieutenants. They were here. Santana was here, and while the Texians no longer enjoyed numerical superiority, these were the best odds they were likely to have. The other council members insisted that Houston must fight, that a further delay would not be countenanced by the soldiers or officers. Finally, the dejected commander spat.
Fight then, and be damned.
Not exactly words to inspire confidence. What explains Houston's diffident behavior? He was likely clinging to his American strategy, realizing that a battle on the banks of Buffalo Bayou, even if a victory, would not accomplish his long-standing political objective, which was to bring Texas into the United States. That would require a battle fought east of the Neches River. The advance of the Mexican army beyond that stream would trigger the participation of General Gaines's American army, assure Mexican defeat, confirm Texas independence, and guarantee early annexation. But all that required the retreat of the Texian army into the East Texas timber country. With his political hopes dashed, Houston bowed to the inevitable and called the army to arms. By 4:30, the time the rebels began their advance toward the enemy camp, the long shadows of late afternoon fell across the field. The delay paid unexpected dividends. In the Mexican camp, many of Santana's officers complained that their men were dead on their feet. The soldados of Santana's detachment had been up all night erecting barricades and standing guard against a night attack. Coss's men had marched all night and were all but spent. The Mexicans had stood on the alert all day. They had expected an attack at first light, then mid-morning, then noon, but they detected no movement in the rebel camp. If Houston had not attacked by now, it was extremely unlikely that he would do so late in the day with so little daylight left. Santana ordered his men to stand down. Exhausted, they collapsed into their bedrolls. Across the field, the rebels advanced in a two-column formation, with the twin sisters in the middle and mounted riflemen screened behind an oak grove on the Mexican left. 19 Tejanos, led by Bear native Juan Seguin, marched alongside their Anglo comrades. In their hatbands, they had placed pieces of cardboard, lest in the heat of battle, Texians mistake them for the enemy. The Texian horse now boasted a new commander. Mirabeau Lamar, a private the day before, had so distinguished himself that Houston awarded him with the cavalry command. Yeah! Topography favored the Texians. As they marched toward the Mexican camp, they sank into the large basin that concealed them from view. Climbing out of the depression, they quickly formed into a battle line. The training at Gross's camp was paying off. Even then, the tall prairie grass blocked them from view. The rebels advanced within musket range of the makeshift barricades before the Mexicans saw them. Disoriented soldados stumbled to their feet, but already the rebels were among them. Surprise was complete. One of their officers described his men as a panic-stricken herd. Shouting their battle cry, "Remember the Alamo! Remember Goliad!" the Texians swept the Mexican camp. The actual battle lasted only 19 minutes, but the slaughter lasted much longer. Avenging the defeats at the Alamo and Goliad, Texas soldiers committed atrocities as reprehensible as those of the Mexicans. Soldados cast down their muskets and threw up their hands, shouting, "Me no Alamo, me no Goliad." It availed them nothing. The Texians gunned them down. Ashamed, Texian surgeon Nicholas Labadie bemoaned that he had witnessed acts of cruelty which I forbear to recount. The bloodletting continued. Texas rebels killed until they were too exhausted to kill anymore. Some 650 Mexicans fell victim to their rage. About 700 escaped the carnage, only to fall captive later. Miraculously, Texian casualties were 9 killed and 30 wounded. Among the wounded was General Houston. A canister round had smashed his ankle to powder. Texian soldiers searched frantically among the prisoners for Santana, but found nothing. Nor could they identify his body among the slain. His Excellency, it seemed, had escaped.